It had been nearly 3 days since I lost contact with my husband. Although he had said he wouldn't be able to reply for a while, my concerns were growing. Just as I was thinking it might be time to contact the police, I received a call from one of my subordinates. "Your husband, he passed away in an accident." What? I couldn't fathom why she was the one calling me, but that thought was impossible to process right now. I rushed to the hospital. There, I was confronted with the unrecognizable form of my husband. My name is Laura, and I am 28 years old. Having married 2 years ago, I worked in an IT company while living with my husband. We hope to have children someday, but not yet. My husband's name was Dan. He was 2 years older than me and extremely dedicated to his work. Just the other day, there was talk of a promotion. He came home from work and immediately ran up to me, beaming with joy. "Laura! Listen! I might be getting a promotion soon." "Really? That's amazing." "Yeah, I'm so happy. It's been tough, but it was worth the hard work." "Dan, you did a lot of work on weekends. I'm so proud of you, congratulations." Indeed, his dedication often meant working on days off. He frequently came home just before midnight due to overtime. There were times when I worried about his intense workload, but it finally paid off. Seeing my husband so happy made me feel joyous too. I couldn't be left behind, I was inspired to work harder. But from that day on, I started noticing something off about Dan. His overtime increased, and he began coming home past midnight on weekdays. The few weekend workdays he had became more frequent. Last month, he even went to the office on Saturdays. Moreover, he seemed somewhat colder towards me. We used to go out on our days off, but that had stopped recently. Isn't that strange? Why doesn't he seem tired despite all this work? Concerned, I decided to casually ask him. I waited for his late return and broached the subject. "Hey, Dan, can we talk?" "What?" "I'm tired and want to sleep soon." "You're always on your phone before bed, despite coming home late. Aren't you getting enough sleep?" "What are you trying to say? How I spend my free time is my business, right? I get that, but are you really that busy with work?" For a moment, his expression hardened. Not missing a beat, I pressed further. "I understand there's a lot to do with the promotion, but isn't this too much? Too many weekend shifts, isn't that bad for the company too?" "I can't help it. It's not like I want to do all this overtime and weekend work. But isn't it too much? You don't understand my job, Laura. Don't interfere when I come home tired." With that, Dan left the living room. Since then, the turmoil inside me never ceased. Then, one day, something happened. I usually commuted by car, but on my way home from work, I was involved in an accident. Another car rear-ended me, and I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. I had bruises all over my body. To be safe, I underwent several tests and was told I needed to be hospitalized for a few days. To have someone bring my change of clothes, I called my husband. But no matter how many times I called, he didn't answer the phone, and he didn't reply to any of the messages I sent. He should have been off work by then. Why wasn't he answering? Until now, even during overtime, we were able to exchange messages. I continued to call every few minutes, and it was an hour later when he finally answered. As I started to explain my situation, he let out a big sigh. "Ugh, you're being persistent. Can't you tell I'm working overtime if I'm not answering the phone?" "I'm sorry, but right now, that's not what's important." "What do you mean?" "I was in an accident on my way home, and I have to be hospitalized. I'm in pain all over, but they said there's no danger to my life." "An accident? Ugh, what a hassle you've caused." His unexpected response left me speechless, uttering a bewildered "what?" Ignoring my loss for words, he continued mercilessly. "I'm busy with work, and now you go and get into an accident. Just so you know, I'm not paying for the car repairs." "I understand. But I need you to bring me a change of clothes." "What?" Why do I have to do that? I'm tired from work and now I have to go to the hospital because of your carelessness? This is like some kind of punishment game. Carelessness? Why are you speaking to me like that? The accident wasn't my fault. It was the other driver's negligence. Enough with your nagging. Anyway, I'm not coming, and I won't be responding for a while. You deal with it yourself. The call ended there. The tone of disconnection echoed in my ears, further tightening the grip on my heart. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Why would he speak to me like that? Doesn't he care that his wife was in an accident? Before, he would have put me before his work. If I could get my clothes myself, I would. My parents were too far away to ask for help. Despite sending several messages to my husband afterward, he never came to bring my things. I had to buy everything I needed from the hospital shop. Since then, I tried contacting him a few times, but 3 days passed without a reply. Although he said he wouldn't respond for a while, I started to worry. It was unusual for him not to contact me at all. Could he have had an accident too? Such fears flitted through my mind. Just then, I heard a knock on my hospital room door. Come in. I answered and saw Sarah, a colleague I was close with, who had come to visit me. Sarah. Did you come to see me? Thank you. I figured you were off work for a while, so I reached out and found out you were in an accident. I was so shocked. It's just bruises and a fracture, nothing serious. That's still quite serious. But I'm glad you seem okay. We chatted and laughed about trivial things for a while. As visiting hours came to a close, Sarah began to pack up to leave. Then, she stopped and looked troubled. Sensing she wanted to say something, I hesitantly asked. Sarah. Is something wrong? Sorry, Laura. I know this isn't the best time to say this, but I saw something. Saw something? What did you see? I saw your husband, Dan, walking with Nancy. What? When did this happen? 3 days ago. Nancy, mentioned by Sarah, was a junior colleague at our company. When she was a new employee, I was her mentor. Even years later, we were close enough to have lunch together once a week. Why would she be with Dan? The last time Nancy and my husband met was at our wedding. Could something have happened then? But it couldn't be possible, or could it? Despite my disbelief, the worst-case scenario began to take shape in my mind. According to Sarah, she saw Dan with a carry-on case and Nancy 3 days ago. Since that day, Nancy had taken leave from work. Tentatively, I called Dan's office, and my suspicions were confirmed. He too had requested leave starting 3 days ago. In that moment, my doubts turned into certainty. The husband I loved and the junior I cared for had betrayed me. Probably, Dan's increased overtime and weekend work were cover-ups for meeting her. Maybe, they had been involved even before. With every recollection of his odd behavior, more pieces fell into place. That's why he had become so cold. The realization hit me hard. Unconsciously, I found myself calling my husband. I hadn't contacted him much these past few days, thinking he wouldn't return home anyway. He probably wouldn't answer just a few calls. But I couldn't let him get away with this. I kept calling until he answered. After about 30 minutes, he finally picked up, sounding irritated. What do you want? You're so persistent. Didn't I say I wouldn't reply for a while? Why? Can't you answer your wife's call because you're busy with something? Of course. I'm busy with work every day. Even though you've taken leave until tomorrow? What kind of work are you doing? He must have thought he hadn't been caught yet, as he stumbled over his words. But, thinking he could still deceive me, he quickly started making excuses. What are you talking about? I haven't taken any leave. No use pretending. I've already confirmed it with your office. Well, actually, I just wanted to relax. I've been chilling at home these past few days. Oh really, with Nancy? And even prepared a carry-on case? I already know everything. Just confess quietly. I raised my voice, something I don't usually do. Realizing he could no longer hide the truth, he gave in and revealed his true colors. So you found out.
Yeah.
I'm on a trip with Nancy. Now that you know, stop bothering me, you ugly woman. So it was true. Why? Why with Nancy? Why do you think? She's younger and cuter than you. For such a reason? That's enough, okay? I'm enjoying my trip. Don't disturb me. I'll give you a divorce when I get back, so relax. He hung up with a final,
See ya.
and that was it. It was right after that phone call. The love I had for my husband turned instantly into hatred. Unforgivable, betrayed in such a horrendous way. I wouldn't let them get away with this. I was determined to make them suffer. But before I could act, retribution came for them in another way. I was set to be discharged the next day and was able to move around a bit. As I was about to search for a lawyer's office on my smartphone, it rang. Nancy's name appeared on the screen. Surprised but resolute, I answered the call. Hello? Laura. I'm so sorry, so sorry. You should apologize in person, not over the phone. Why, yes, you're right. But right now, that's not possible. What do you mean? Nancy's voice was trembling. Then she said something unbelievable. Your husband, he died in an accident. What? I was too shocked to find the right words. Confused, but somehow responding, I asked her. Dead? What are you talking about? Isn't Dan with you on a trip? Well, yes, but on our way back from the airport, Dan got involved in an accident. According to Nancy, they had an accident on the way home from the airport. Dan was hit by a car and didn't move even after the ambulance arrived. Shockingly, the hospital he was taken to was the same one I was in. I quickly hung up, explained the situation to a nurse, and went to see my husband. I had to use crutches because of my fractured leg. I thought he was dead, so I expected to be led to the morgue, but Dan was still alive, albeit gravely injured. Just after I arrived, Nancy, out of breath, rushed in. Seeing Dan alive, she collapsed on the spot. There was so much I wanted to say, but Dan was in no state to talk. I told Nancy we would discuss it later and went our separate ways for the day. A few days later, Dan miraculously survived, but the accident left him paralyzed from the waist down and confined to a wheelchair. His parents, who rushed to the hospital, were furious upon learning about the affair. Despite their son's condition, they reprimanded him, saying it was his just desserts for cheating. After they left, I called Nancy and decided to have a three-way discussion in my husband's hospital room. When I arrived, I found them arguing loudly. If you hadn't pushed me that time, I wouldn't be in this state. It's all your fault. What? It was your idea to take that route. Don't blame me. What did you say? First off, it was you who wanted to go on the trip. I paid for everything, give me back the money. Pay for the treatment, you wretch. It's only natural for a woman who injured her lover to compensate. Don't be ridiculous. Who would be serious about someone like you? It was just a fling. I'll never see you again. What? They seemed unaware of my presence, caught up in their bitter argument. I had reached my breaking point. I flung open the hospital room door, took a deep breath, and shouted at them with all my might. Enough of this. All of this happened because you decided to cheat. Stop blaming each other and take responsibility for your actions. What? Laura. Laura. They seemed to finally notice me, their faces stiffening in shock. I continued, undeterred by their stunned expressions. Can you even understand the situation you're in, arguing even now in this mess? Dan was the first to respond. Laura. Calm down. I'm going to break up with this stupid woman. And then? I asked, unimpressed. What? Well, I realized you're the only one for me, Laura. What? After all this, you think we can just go back to how things were? We're getting divorced, remember? What? He stared at me, dumbfounded. I couldn't help but let out a laugh at his clueless expression. You're the one who said we'd divorce once you got back. What, now that things are bad with your affair partner, you want to stay married to me? How ridiculous. To think I'd spend my life with someone like you is unimaginable. Laura, why? I thought you loved me. Love? Who betrayed whom first? You were all too eager to announce our divorce, and now you want to reconcile just because things aren't going your way? I'm not the cheap woman you think I am. Stay out of my life forever. Live with your regret, you despicable man. My shouting left him dazed. Nancy was visibly shaking and had turned pale. After being discharged, I decided to go back to my parents' house for a while. Soon after, through a lawyer, I finalized my divorce with Dan. I made sure he and Nancy paid a substantial amount in damages. Following this ordeal, Dan was fired from his company. He had been using company funds for his affair, leading to his dismissal. Additionally, his paralysis made the decision to let him go an easy one. All he had left was a claim for damages from the company. Finding a new job in his condition would likely be difficult. It didn't take long for the news of Nancy's affair with my husband to spread within the company. She faced cold stares, and the hostile environment became too much for her. She started missing work without notice and eventually submitted her resignation. Now, neither of them would likely lead a normal life again. But I had no sympathy for them. They brought this upon themselves. As for me, I rented an apartment near my office and started a new life. Many colleagues approached me, some out of concern, some out of curiosity. My feelings about it were complex and hard to define. However, I expected that such pointless gossip would soon subside. Now, I want to live my life without being influenced by others, enjoying it on my own terms.